So this is our second lecture on time value money. Second part of the lecture. We're going to do a bunch of problems, apply the mathematical model we talked about last time. So we have all these different topics laid out here. Each one of these is a problem we're going to do. We're solving for something different, slightly different time value money problem. If you scroll down on your outline, and you might want to print this out before you watch the lecture, or so pause it real quick and go print this out so you can work along. Each one of these is a problem that we're going to use the we're basically going to learn how to use our financial calculator, how to solve all these different types of problems. So for starters, we have a problem that says, what will $1,000 invested today at 10% interest be worth in 30 years? I'm going to flip over now to the kind of graphical summary of your financial calculator I gave you earlier, which is you have a times 0, and this is the initial value of your investment. You have a last year, which we call the future value, and that's what your investment's going to be worth at the end of the time period. You have an interest rate, and you have a payment, which we won't use for the first several problems here. This problem said, how much will you have if you invest 1,000? These are all obviously your calculator buttons. Let's go back and look at the calculator real quick. Here's your financial calculator. You might be using Excel or something else, but they all kind of work the same. So you have these gray buttons across the middle here. N is number of periods. In this case, it's 30 years. So 30 is N. I/Y is your interest rate. In this case, it's 10%. So when you put it in a finance calculator, you put it in as 10. Don't put it in as a decimal. Don't put it as 0.1. Put it in as a percent, 10. Present value is the initial value of your investment at the beginning of the time period, which is called present value. It's not always today. Sometimes you're solving for a number in the past, which is your present value, but that gets a little confusing. But in this case, you're going to put $1,000 in. And it's a good idea. Your calculator needs to distinguish between cash inflows and cash outflows, meaning cash outflows, you're paying something, cash inflows, you're receiving something. If you don't let the calculator know which is which, it might get the answer wrong. So we're going to pay something. So we'll actually make that negative 1,000 because you're going to have to pay in $1,000 to an investment. And then we're going to see what the future value is. Payment's just 0 in this case. The way you actually do that in your calculator, and unfortunately I can't really show you how I'm using my calculator very well on this video, but I'll just have to kind of talk you through it. The way you use one of these calculators is, for example, you need to put 30 into N. It's not like a graphing calculator or a typical calculator. You don't hit N and then 30. What you actually do is you put 30, hit 30, and you'll have 30 showing on your screen up here, and then hit N. And when you do that, it'll say N equals 30, and it'll have a little triangle over the top, just a little mini triangle that says I've saved that number into that register. So these are called registers. Register is a computer term just to mean it's a spot where you can save a number. So at that point you've saved 30 in there. Then we'll move on to I/Y. We want that to be 10, so we'll type in 10 and hit I/Y, and it'll save I/Y equals 10. You'll see that on your screen. Then we go to present value. We want that to be negative 1,000, so we'll do 1,000, put a negative sign in front of it, and then hit present value, and it'll say PV equals negative 1,000. Then we can do 0 equals payment, and then we're ready to compute our future value. In order to compute that, you hit, once you have the other 4, as long as you have 4 of the 5 you can solve for the 5th one, you hit compute, which is in the upper left hand corner, future value. It'll give you the answer. It'll say future value equals whatever the answer is. So let's go back to our sorry, went to the wrong screen. Let's go back to this little chart, and again I'm going to make this negative 1,000 because it's a cash outflow. You have to pay that, and that'll make future value positive. It's like you have to pay this to receive this. So this is an outflow, this will be an inflow. And when I plug that into my calculator, I'm getting, and I hope everybody else gets the same, I'm getting 17,449. Rounding to $1. So if you invest $1,000 today for 30 years at 10%, you're going to have $17,450 roughly. And that's your first time value money problem that you've done on your calculator, hopefully. If you can figure out how to get that right. The first several times you do these time value money problems, they're a little bit foreign, how to work the calculator. It's mainly just a mechanical issue, learning how to use this calculator here. Once you've done 5, 10 of these, they're really easy. You can actually do one of these time value money problems in about 30 seconds or quicker, because it's actually very, very convenient. You put 4 of the 5 numbers in, you hit compute, and you get the 5th number. You don't really have to do any math or anything. The calculator does all that for you. The hardest part is taking a problem that's a word problem that has a bunch of numbers in it, picking out which numbers go where. That's basically all you have to do. Alright, so that's future value. Now let's go to the next problem. We're going to solve for a present value. And the first step in any of these problems is figuring out what are we trying to solve for. If we read this question, it says, how much do you need to invest today at 5% interest to have $30,000 in 20 years? Now I've given you in the title which value you're trying to solve for, but obviously in a test or whatnot you're not going to have that given to you. You'll have to figure that out. So a good starting spot, you have 5 variables: in, I/y, PV, payment, and future value. Figure first, which one am I solving for? In this case, how much do I have to invest today to have $30,000 in the future? The question is present value. What do I need to put into the present value to get a certain future value, which we want to be $30,000? So you can set this problem up. This problem could be worded much more complicated. It could say you're trying to save for your child's college, and you think in 20 years, and you think you'll need $30,000 for it. How much do you need to put into a fund today to have that money set aside in 20 years? So a word problem on a test would probably be a little bit more complicated. We're just starting out with these, so I'm trying to make it as basic as possible. But if we go over and look at the chart, it should look like this. Again, start with, where's my question mark? Which one am I solving for? In this case, we want to know how much do we have to put into a fund today. That's a present value, so you put a question mark there. You need to have the other 4 out of 5 given to you in the problem. The only one that's not given to you is your payment, and that's because we don't make a payment in this case. This is not an annuity. In fact, most of these first problems, we won't have any of these payments, so it's just 0. But again, we want $30,000 in 20 years at a 5% interest rate. Plug all that into your calculator, and if I did mine right, hopefully I did, I'm getting negative 11,307, which means you'll need to invest $11,307 for 20 years at 5% to have $30,000, and that's your answer. Alright, so we've done 2, future value, present value. Next one, we're going to look at solving for the interest rate. At what interest rate will you double your investment in 3 years? So I've set my problem up like this. The key is you have n equals 3, that's 3 years. We're looking for the interest rate again, so it's probably a good idea to start with what are you looking for. We're looking for put a question mark, we should have the others. We know payment's 0 in this problem. There's no mention of a periodic payment that's the same each time. The key is to get your present value and your future value right here, because it didn't give it to you in the problem straight up. You have to kind of think it through. We want to double our investment. So as long as this number over here, the future value, is twice this number, and again, you got to get your inflows and outflows right. So on this one, we're paying, and I just did it as $1 and $2. You could just as easily put $1,000 and $2,000 in here. You'd get the exact same answer, as long as this one is twice this one. So that's what the question asked for. So you could put 5 and 10, whatever. I put 1 and 2 just because it's really easy numbers. And make sure you make this one negative and this one positive, because you'd pay in this one, that'd be a cash outflow for you, and you'd receive this one, that'd be a cash inflow for you. So if you plug all that into your, I'm getting about 26%. Meaning in order to double your money in 3 years, you need to make about 26% return. There's actually a thing called the rule of 72, which says if you want to know how long it takes to double your money, you take the number 72 divided by the number of years. So 72 divided by 3, what does that come out to? It's 24. So it got it pretty close. It's not exact, it's just an estimate. But it's an easy way to do it in your head. So you can either take 72 divided by the number of years to figure out how long it'll take to double, Or you can take 72 divided by an interest rate to find out how many years it'll take to double. That's just a rule of thumb. If you have your finance calculator with you, you don't really need the rule of 72. You just use your finance calculator to get an exact number. Alright, so we've done 3 problems now. Let's go look at the next one. It says solving for time. How long does it take $100 to grow to $500 at a 15% interest rate? How long does it take is the question. Which again, start with what are you solving for? It obviously gives it to you right here, but on a test it won't. How long does it take means n. In terms of those 5 gray buttons, n is what we're looking for. So if we go over to our chart, I've put a question mark on n. And then the question said how long does it take, that's n, for $100 to grow into $500 at a 15% interest rate. So I've put in negative 100 because you'd have to pay that. 500 is what you'd receive. You're going to earn 15%, that's your interest rate, and then we're looking for n. So if I plug all that into my calculator, I'm getting about 11 and a half years. And again, we've done the first problem we solved for future value, then we did present value, then we did interest rate, now we did n. The math is not hard because the calculator does it all for you, right? But there's just 4 different ways that problem can be set up depending on what you're solving for. Alright, I think the next question is future value of annuity due. So we're getting into annuities now, where we're going to use the payment key. We're 11 and a half minutes into this lecture, so I'm going to run out of time. I won't have enough time to get through annuities. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video here. And I'll see you on the next video, and we'll tackle this question right here, where we'll get into using the payment button.